I accidentally discovered my wife's 5-year affair when I overheard her talking to my brother, who'd been hiding her secret all along. Now his marriage is over too, and he physically attacked me for not helping him win his wife back. I never imagined that I'd be here writing this story, a story I still can't fully wrap my head around. My life, once so normal, so stable, has unraveled in ways I never could have foreseen. I'm 38 now, and I've been married to Sarah for 12 years. We have 2 children, Emily, who's 10, and Max, who's 8. I always thought we had a good marriage. Sure, we had our share of arguments like any couple, but overall I thought we were happy. At least I was. My brother Tom and I have always been close. He's 40, 2 years older than me, and he's been married to his high school sweetheart Linda for 15 years. They have a daughter, Sophie, who's 13. Tom and I grew up in a tight-knit family where loyalty was everything. We were each other's best friends, confidants, and support systems. It wasn't just us. Our families were close too. Our kids grew up playing together. We spent holidays and birthdays as one big family. Everything seemed picture perfect. Looking back, maybe that was the problem. Things seemed perfect. I was so wrapped up in my own life, in maintaining this image of a happy family, that I didn't notice the cracks forming. I didn't realize my wife had been keeping a secret from me. Worse yet, I didn't realize my brother was too. It all came crashing down at a family event, my nephew's birthday party. It was the kind of casual, carefree day we'd always had. The kids were running around in the backyard playing games, and the adults were enjoying drinks and conversation. Nothing seemed out of place until I noticed Sarah and Tom talking quietly in the corner. I didn't think much of it at first. They'd always been on good terms. I mean, why wouldn't they be? We were like one big happy family, right? But later that day, as I walked past them to grab more drinks from the kitchen, I overheard something that made my heart stop. Sarah was whispering something to Tom, her voice low but urgent. The words weren't clear at first, but as I got closer, I caught the tail end of the conversation. Sarah was talking about an affair, her affair. I froze in my tracks. My ears rang as I tried to process what I just heard. There was no mistaking it. Sarah wasn't talking about someone else's affair. She was talking about hers. I stood there, hidden behind the doorframe, trying to catch my breath. How long had this been going on? Who else knew? Why was she telling my brother? The more I listened, the more the horrible truth revealed itself. This wasn't a recent fling or a one-time mistake. No, this had been going on for 5 years. 5 years of lies. 5 years of betrayal. And the worst part? Tom knew. He'd known the entire time. When I finally pulled myself together and walked back into the room, I couldn't look at either of them. I felt like my world had been shattered. Every memory I had of Sarah, every moment we'd shared over the past 5 years, felt tainted now. But I didn't confront them right away. I needed to think. I needed to process everything. So I walked outside, found a quiet spot away from the party, and tried to make sense of what I just learned. The betrayal was too much to bear. I couldn't believe Sarah had done this to me. But what really cut deep was Tom's role in all of it. My own brother, my closest confidant, had been keeping this secret for 5 years. He'd lied to me to my face countless times. He'd let me believe that everything was fine, that my marriage was strong, while he knew the truth all along. How could he justify that? I confronted them later that evening. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I needed answers. Sarah broke down almost immediately, sobbing as she admitted to everything. She said it started out as a mistake, just one night that spiraled out of control. She claimed she was too scared to tell me, that she didn't want to hurt me or our children. She'd confided in Tom, thinking he'd help her figure things out, but instead they both chose to keep me in the dark. They thought they were protecting me. Tom even had the nerve to say he was trying to save the family, and that if I found out, it would destroy everything. But the truth was, he had already destroyed everything. In trying to protect me, he had betrayed me in the worst possible way. The more they talked, the angrier I got. I didn't care about their excuses. Sarah could have come clean years ago, and Tom, my own brother, should have told me the moment he found out. He wasn't protecting me. He was protecting her. And in doing so, he shattered the trust I had in both of them. I couldn't look at Sarah anymore. The very sight of her made me sick. I told her I couldn't stay with her. There was no way I could ever forgive her for what she'd done. The only reason I'd be around was for Emily and Max. I made it clear that divorce was the only option. The next day, I contacted a lawyer and started the process. I couldn't live a lie anymore. Things escalated quickly from there. The fallout wasn't limited to just Sarah and me. Linda, Tom's wife, overheard part of the confrontation. At first, she didn't understand what was going on, but when I explained everything, she was furious. She couldn't believe that Tom had kept such a huge secret from her, let alone from me. She felt betrayed too. Betrayed that her husband had been complicit in hiding Sarah's affair for years. It wasn't long before she told Tom that she wanted a separation. She couldn't trust him anymore. If he could keep something like this hidden, who's to say what else he might be hiding? Tom's world started to crumble just as mine had. He had thought he was saving the family, but instead he had destroyed his own marriage in the process. Linda packed her bags and moved out with Sophie. I think that was the moment Tom realized just how badly he had screwed up. But instead of owning up to his mistakes, Tom came to me. He actually had the audacity to ask for my help. He called me and said I owed him for keeping Sarah's secret, that he had done it to protect me and my kids. He begged me to talk to Linda, to convince her to give him another chance. He thought that because I was his brother, I should help him fix his marriage. But the way I saw it, he had made his choices, and now he was paying the price for them. I didn't owe him anything. If anything, he owed me for the years of lies and betrayal. I told him as much. I told him that he had dug his own grave and that he needed to deal with the consequences of his actions. I had my own mess to clean up, and I wasn't going to waste any more time or energy on his problems. I'm torn. On one hand, Tom is my brother, and despite everything, I still care about him. On the other hand, I feel like he brought this on himself. His decision to hide Sarah's affair was misguided at best, and a complete betrayal of my trust at worst. So now I'm left wondering, am I wrong for not wanting to help Tom? Should I just let him deal with the consequences of his actions? Or do I owe it to him as his brother to try and help salvage his marriage, even though he played a part in nearly destroying mine? AITA for refusing to help my brother after he hid my wife's affair for 5 years? I honestly don't know what to do. My whole world has been turned upside down, and I'm struggling to find solid ground. Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1. Hello guys. After posting the original story, I took some time to gather my thoughts, but honestly, the chaos didn't settle as quickly as I had hoped. Sarah and I had already agreed to move forward with the divorce. I knew there was no coming back from what had happened. I packed up my things and moved out to a small apartment nearby, not too far from where we used to live. My priority above everything else was the kids. Emily and Max were my main concern throughout this entire ordeal, and I wanted to make sure their lives stayed as stable as possible despite everything happening between Sarah and me. The divorce process moved quickly, or at least it felt that way. We were both on the same page about wanting to move on, but Sarah, despite everything, still kept apologizing. The words felt empty to me now. How many times could someone say sorry before it lost all meaning? She suggested counseling, but I knew that wasn't what I needed, nor did I think it would help us. The damage was done. You don't come back from a 5-year betrayal like that. Not in my eyes, at least. I didn't even have the energy to be angry anymore. I was just done. While I was dealing with the logistics of separating our lives, Tom wouldn't stop reaching out to me. Every few days, I'd get a call, a text, or even an unexpected visit from him. He was desperate, begging me to help him fix things with Linda. He genuinely believed that if I talked to her and explained why he kept the secret about Sarah's affair, she might forgive him. It was baffling to me that he thought I would ever intervene after everything he'd done. He wasn't just my brother anymore. He was part of the reason my marriage had imploded. The more he asked for my help, the more I distanced myself from him. Every message or plea just reminded me of how he had betrayed me for 5 long years. He had destroyed my marriage by keeping Sarah's secret, and now he expected me to help him fix his own? No, I couldn't bring myself to get involved. It wasn't my job to clean up his mess. As time went on, though, I couldn't stop thinking about Linda. She had been blindsided just like I had. I hadn't checked in on her since the fallout, and guilt started to creep in. One night, after a particularly tough day, I decided to reach out. I sent her a simple text asking how she was holding up. Honestly, I didn't expect much of a response. I figured she was just as overwhelmed with everything as I was, but to my surprise, she responded quickly, and we ended up having a long chat on call. That conversation was eye-opening, to say the least. Linda told me things I hadn't known, things that made me see just how deep Tom's deception had gone, not just towards me, but towards her too. She explained that finding out about Sarah's affair was the final straw, but in reality, their marriage had been crumbling for years. Tom had become increasingly secretive. He'd stay out late, giving vague explanations about where he had been. Whenever Linda would ask, he'd get defensive, almost angry, like she had no right to question him. His phone was always glued to his hand, screen down, and he'd leave the room whenever he had to take a call. Linda had tried to ignore it at first, but after a while, it became too blatant to overlook. What really broke her was how absent Tom had become from their family life. He missed important milestones, birthdays, Sophie, their daughters, school events, and even their anniversary. Linda told me that Sophie, who had always been close to her dad, started to notice the distance. Sophie once asked Linda if her dad still loved them, and that broke Linda's heart. She had been trying so hard to keep their family together, But when your own daughter starts to question her father's love, it's hard to ignore the problems anymore. Linda had been suspicious for a long time, but she wanted to believe Tom was just going through something. A rough patch, maybe. She had hoped things would get better. But when she found out that he had kept Sarah's affair from me, kept such a monumental secret, everything fell into place for her. It wasn't just about Sarah's betrayal anymore. It was about Tom and the years of deception, the lies, the emotional distance. Keeping that secret was the final straw, but it was far from the only problem. As we talked, Linda admitted that she had been considering separating from Tom for a while. She hadn't told anyone, not even her closest friends, but the emotional distance between them had been growing for years. She had tried to make it work for Sophie's sake, but she was exhausted. Exhausted from trying to hold a marriage together when Tom seemed to have checked out completely. The constant lies, the defensiveness, and now this final betrayal, it was all too much for her. Finding out that he had been complicit in Sarah's affair had pushed her over the edge. She couldn't take it anymore. She was ready to walk away for good. By the end of our conversation, it was clear that Linda was done with Tom, and frankly, I couldn't blame her. She wasn't angry in a loud, dramatic way. She was just tired. Tired of fighting for a marriage that had already crumbled. Keeping Sarah's affair a secret wasn't just a singular act of betrayal. It was the tipping point after years of dishonesty and emotional neglect. Hearing all of this from Linda made me realize how deep Tom's actions had gone. It wasn't just about me and Sarah. It was about years of deceit that had fractured not only my marriage but his as well. Tom had lost more than just my trust. He had lost the trust of his wife and daughter too. He had spent so much time trying to protect me, as he claimed, that he hadn't even noticed his own marriage falling apart. After that call, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't alone in this mess. Linda had been blindsided too, and while it didn't make my situation any easier, it did give me some perspective. Tom's betrayal ran much deeper than I had initially realized. He hadn't just failed me, he had failed Linda, Sophie, and himself. In the days that followed, I stopped responding to Tom's pleas for help. I knew there was nothing I could do for him. He had made his choices, and now he had to deal with the consequences. I wasn't going to step in and try to fix his marriage, not when he had played such a significant role in destroying mine. It was time for him to face the fallout of his actions, just as I had to. Now I'm focusing on what's next for me and my kids. The divorce process is moving forward, and I'm trying to create a new sense of normalcy for Emily and Max. They've been through enough already, and my priority is making sure they feel loved and supported through all of this. As for Tom, I don't know what will happen with him and Linda. Last I heard, she was still living with her parents and consulting a lawyer, so it seems like their separation is inevitable. Looking back, I realized that this entire situation has been a wake-up call. Betrayal doesn't always come from the places you expect, and sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who cause the most damage. But I've learned that you can't carry someone else's mistakes on your shoulders. Tom made his bed, and now he has to lie in it. Update 2. It's been a few days since my conversation with Linda, and things seem to have quieted down, at least on the surface. Tom had finally stopped bombarding me with calls and messages, and for the first time in what felt like ages, I could breathe. With the divorce proceedings well underway, I was focusing all my energy on the kids, trying to make sure they felt as normal and supported as possible in the middle of all this chaos. Sarah and I had been alternating weeks with them, and although it was hard not seeing Emily and Max every day, I knew I needed to make the most of the time I had with them. This weekend, I brought them over to my place for a few days. The apartment wasn't much, but it was home now, and I wanted to make sure the kids felt comfortable. We spent the day doing simple things, watching movies, playing board games, and eating takeout, just being together. After weeks of turmoil, it felt good to have moments of peace, even if they were fleeting. I was trying to get back into a routine, attempting to create some semblance of normalcy for the kids, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. Never in a million years did I expect the events that unfolded. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I had left the kids at home while I ran to the grocery store to pick up a few things. I was wandering through the aisles, minding my own business, when I heard someone call my name. I turned around and, to my shock, there was Tom. His face was red, and he was marching towards me with a furious expression. Before I could even process what was happening, he was in my face, shouting at me in the middle of the store. He started yelling, "How could you?" And that he was fine with the fact that I couldn't help, but now I wanted to backstab him by talking to Linda. I was taken aback. At first, I didn't even know what he was talking about. I asked what he was on about, trying to stay calm despite the fact that we were starting to draw attention. People were turning their heads, watching the scene unfold. He screamed at me, insisting that I knew exactly what he was talking about. He accused me of talking to Linda behind his back, and questioned whether I thought he was unaware of my actions. I was confused and angry at the same time. I checked on Linda, and that's it. What did he expect? She's going through the same thing I am, I told him. You dug your own grave, Tom. You brought this on yourself. Hearing that only seemed to make him more enraged. He repeated his old slogan that he did what he had to do. He further said that I had always been the favorite, the golden boy. But he had to step up and protect the family, and according to him, now I was turning around and destroying his. I could feel my patience slipping. This was the same twisted logic he'd been using for weeks to justify his actions. I directly told him that he didn't protect anyone. He lied. He kept secrets that tore apart two families. Now he was angry because he was facing the consequences. I thought that would be the end of it, that he'd finally back off. But I couldn't have been more wrong. Tom lost it completely. Without warning, he lunged at me, throwing a punch that landed square on my jaw. I stumbled back, stunned. Before I could even react, he was on me, shoving and swinging wildly. The grocery bags I'd been holding went flying, scattering food across the floor as I tried to defend myself. People started shouting, and in the chaos, I could hear someone yelling for help. A few bystanders rushed over and managed to pull Tom off me, dragging him back while I tried to get to my feet. My heart was pounding in my chest, my hands shaking from the adrenaline. A store employee had called the police, and before I knew it, there were officers at the scene. Tom was still fuming, restrained by two other men who had stepped in to break up the fight. His eyes were wild, like he couldn't even comprehend what he'd just done. I was furious, but more than that, I was exhausted. I couldn't believe it had come to this. My own brother attacking me in public like a madman. The police pulled us aside, trying to get a handle on what had happened. I didn't want to make a huge deal out of it. The last thing I needed was more drama, especially with everything going on with the divorce. The kids had been through enough already, and the thought of dragging them through a legal mess involving their uncle was the last thing I wanted. So when the officers asked if I wanted to press charges, I told them no. I just wanted this to be over. I told the cops to make sure Tom knew he couldn't come near me again. I made it clear that I didn't want to see him, talk to him, or hear from him anymore. They gave him a stern warning and told him he was lucky I wasn't pressing charges. After that, Tom was escorted out of the store, still muttering angrily under his breath. I stood there for a while, trying to process what had just happened. I couldn't believe how far things had spiraled out of control. Just a few months ago, we were two brothers living our lives, our families intertwined, celebrating birthdays and holidays together. Now we were nothing more than strangers. Worse, enemies. I picked up what was left of my groceries and headed home, still in shock. When I walked through the door, the kids could tell something was off. I did my best to hide it, to put on a brave face, but they knew me too well. Emily especially had this worried look on her face, like she could sense something was wrong. But I forced a smile and nodded for her consolation. I spent the rest of the evening trying to shake off what had happened, but it lingered in my mind. I couldn't believe Tom had crossed that line. I had expected anger, frustration, maybe even some yelling, but to physically attack me? That was a new low. It made me realize just how far gone he really was. The next day, I woke up to a barrage of texts from Sarah. Apparently, Tom had told her everything, twisting the story to make it seem like I had been the one provoking him. She wanted to know why I had escalated things and how it had gotten so out of hand. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Tom was trying to make himself the victim now, and Sarah was buying into it. It was unbelievable. I sent her a quick response explaining what had really happened, but I kept it short. I wasn't interested in getting into a back and forth about it. If she wanted to believe Tom, that was her problem. A few days later, I got a call from Linda. She had heard about the altercation and wanted to check in on me. She sounded exhausted, like all of this was taking a toll on her as well. We talked for a while, and she confirmed what I had already suspected. Tom was spiraling. His behavior had become more erratic since our marriage started falling apart. He was lashing out at everyone around him, desperate to find someone to blame for the mess he had created. But the more he lashed out, the more isolated he became. Linda told me she was moving forward with the divorce. There was no going back for her now. She had spoken to a lawyer and was preparing to file the paperwork. Sophie, their daughter, was staying with her for the time being, and Linda was doing her best to shield her from the worst of it. But even Sophie had started to notice how unhinged her father had become. Linda said she had asked about the fight in the store, having overheard something about it. It broke my heart to think about how all of this was affecting the kids, especially Sophie. She didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this mess. After the call with Linda, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. I was relieved that she was taking steps to move on from Tom, but sad for the family that had been torn apart in the process. This wasn't how things were supposed to end for any of us. As for Tom, I hadn't heard from him since the incident at the grocery store, and I hoped it stayed that way. He had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and I had no interest in repairing our relationship. There was too much damage, too much betrayal, and now violence. Whatever brotherly bond we once had was gone, replaced by a cold, hard distance that I didn't think would ever be bridged. In the days that followed, I tried to focus on moving forward. The divorce was still looming, but I was doing my best to stay strong for the kids. Emily and Max deserved a father who was present and steady, someone they could rely on. That's what I was determined to be for them, no matter what else was happening around me. Tom had made his choices, and now he had to live with them. As for me, I was done looking back. It was time to move on, to rebuild my life, and to focus on the people who mattered most, my kids. Update 3. Hi everyone. I realized I never properly thanked all of you for your comments, support, and advice throughout this entire ordeal. Believe me, I've read every single one of them, and they've helped me more than I can express. It's been a few days since the altercation with Tom, and I've been doing my best to pretend it never happened. But no matter how hard I tried to push it aside, it's hard to shake the reality that my own brother attacked me in public. It's one of those moments that sticks with you no matter how much you wish it didn't. My parents found out about what happened between Tom and me, and they're not happy with him at all. They're disappointed and hurt, which is understandable. I mean, who wouldn't be? Both of their sons are now going through divorces for different reasons, and I know this has taken a toll on them too. I hadn't really considered how much all of this must have affected them until now. I plan on visiting them very soon with my kids. As for Sarah and me, we've managed to come to some sort of agreement regarding the kids. After everything, we've had to focus on making sure Emily and Max are okay. That's been my priority above all else. Right now, the kids are staying with me. Sarah wanted to take them, but Emily and Max both insisted they wanted to stay at my place for now. I think they feel more secure here, probably because I've been more present these past few weeks, trying to rebuild the trust that was fractured when all this began. It's not that Sarah isn't trying. She's been making an effort, but I think the kids are still processing everything that's happened. They've seen us argue, they know about the divorce, and they're aware that things are changing. I've been honest with them in age-appropriate ways, explaining that their mom and I are going through some things, but that we both love them more than anything. Still, it's a lot for them to handle. My daughter Emily especially has been more withdrawn lately. She's quieter, more introspective. She doesn't say much, but I can tell she's struggling to make sense of everything. Max, on the other hand, seems to be coping by distracting himself with his video games and school friends. He's always been more resilient, but even he has his moments where he asks why things couldn't just go back to the way they were. We've set up a schedule now, and for the next few months, the kids will stay with me during the weekdays, and Sarah will have them on the weekends. We both agreed that this was the best arrangement, at least for now. It gives the kids some stability, and it gives me a chance to be more involved in their day-to-day lives. Some days I feel like I'm barely holding it together, but I know I have to stay strong for their sake. I know my parents are hoping we'll reconcile, but I don't know if that's possible. They've tried to mediate, suggesting that we sit down and talk things through, but I'm not ready for that. Not after everything that's happened. I'm still dealing with my own hurt and anger, and the thought of facing Tom again, of pretending like we can just talk things out, feels impossible. In the meantime, I've been focusing on rebuilding my life. I've been spending more time with friends, catching up with people I had drifted away from during the worst of the chaos. It's been nice to have some semblance of normalcy again, even if it's just in small doses. But every time I think I'm moving forward, something pulls me back. The divorce is still looming over everything, and even though Sarah and I are on the same page about the kids, the legal side of things is messy. We're still working through the details, dividing assets, and figuring out who gets what. It's exhausting, both mentally and emotionally. Some days I feel like I'm drowning in paperwork and legal jargon, and it's hard to keep my head above water. I guess that's where I'm at now, just trying to take things one day at a time. There are still a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of unresolved feelings, but for the first time in a while, I feel like I'm starting to see a path forward. It's not going to be easy, and I know there will be more bumps along the way, but at least now I feel like I'm moving in the right direction. And for that, I'm grateful.